Welcome back to Reading Bear. Today, we will take a look at some new malicious compliance stories. And if you enjoyed my content, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and post some bear emojis in the comments. Let's go!
The first one is titled, Customer was concerned about her turtle. I used to be a pool technician. Part of my weekly service route included a local historical mansion. No one lived in the actual mansion as it was used for tours and stuff, but the groundskeeper lived on site in a maintenance shed converted into a house. She was different. She believed heavily in holistic medicine and performed seances. She also had a pet turtle that she liked to let swim around in the pool. The pool itself was a match for the house, old, ugly, and ginormous. Being that it was old and didn't have the best filtration system, and that somehow in a huge meticulously maintained garden this pool had zero shade, it required a good deal of chlorine to keep the water clear. I honestly hated dealing with this place because everything there was inconvenient. So summer comes around, it's getting crazy hot, so groundskeeper lady decides she wants to let her pet turtle go for a dip in the pool to beat the heat. No problem, I guess, the turtle looks kinda cute swimming around in the pool while I school stuff out of it. I go ask the groundskeeper what she wants me to do with her pet while I add chemicals, and she asks me not to add anything so as to not hurt him. Also not a problem, I'll just leave a case of chlorine so she can add it when her turtle is finished. I come back the following week and the case of chlorine is still full. Cue me explaining to her that if she doesn't add the chemicals this 100,000 plus gallon pool is gonna turn green. She tells me she doesn't want to add chemicals because it's bad for her garden and the pool, etc., and that she can deal with the pool turning a little murky. So I cover my own butt by leaving her with another case of chlorine and some acid and instructions of when to add the chemicals. Come back the following week, the weather's gotten hotter, and this pool is getting pretty murky. I added some water clarifier when the groundskeeper wasn't looking and left her with yet another case. They're piling up at this point, and she's billed for each oz of chemical I leave with her, and go on my way. Come back the final week, the pool is straight green. I can't even see past the surface of the water, it's bad. I set my stuff down and go knock on the groundskeeper's door. She opens it in a huff saying, yeah I know, add the chemicals. My response, actually, ma'am, I've come to let you know I can't work on this pool anymore. Our service contract explicitly states that we do not service green pools. If you'd like you can call our dispatch number and they'll set me up with an appointment to come out and give you a quote for clearing out this algae. Due to the age and size of this pool, you'll be looking at a minimum of 20 hours of labor. At $90 per hour. I made sure to document every interaction I had with her, and let my boss know every action I took with that client, just so she wouldn't be able to turn it around on me when her bosses see the $2,500 bill she racked up because she wanted to let her turtle swim in their pool. The next one is titled, Lawyer Makes Post-Car Accident Worse for His Client. I used to work in the claims department for one of the top auto insurance companies in America. I get a phone call from a lawyer looking to file a new accident claim for his client. His client is also my customer. I explain that I can take the initial report from the lawyer but will be contacting the client to get his side of the story. The lawyer immediately tells me that I am not to contact the client because he is being represented by a lawyer. I explain that until I have an official letter of representation on file I have every right to contact the client. So anyway, I proceed to gather all the details from the lawyer. Once I finish filing the claim, I generate a claim number and give it to the lawyer. The lawyer was stalling me a little bit and I soon realized why. He was using the time to get an official letter of representation on file so I couldn't contact his client, also my customer. Which he did, and now I'm not able to speak with the client unless given permission by the lawyer. The lawyer was a total pompous idiot and was definitely trying to throw his weight around just to show he was important. He definitely thought he was putting me in my place. He proceeds to tell me that the client has minor injuries such as back and neck pain and is going to see a doctor. I explain that the client may see whatever doctor he wishes, but that it's best to have us get in contact with his doctor of choice as soon as possible so we can start using the coverage to pay for any medical bills. The lawyer gets all huffy-puffy with me and tells me that the client will go see a doctor and get all the medical help he needs, and once it's all done and over with he will send us a bill that we will be required to pay in full. I explain it doesn't work that way. Some doctors require certain payments from insurance companies up front, or at least be in contact with the insurance company to confirm certain payments will be paid. I also explained the client only had a certain amount of coverage that he pays for. We are not required as an insurance company to pay more than what the client has on his policy. For example, if the client has $10,000 in coverage, we would only pay half of a $20,000 medical bill. I also explained that if the doctor hasn't been in contact with an insurance company, they may charge the client and the client will have to go through a different, longer process for us to reimburse him than if we just paid the doctor up front. Now I know this sounds like a bunch of corporate BS, and it is, but I don't make the rules. I'm really trying my hardest to make this as easy as possible for the client, but the lawyer just isn't having it at all. The lawyer demands that the client will go to whatever doctor he wants and will receive whatever treatment he wants, and that we will pay for it in full and the client will pay nothing out of pocket regardless of the cost of treatment. I went back and forth with the lawyer, but eventually you gotta understand that you're just going in circles and it's time to just take the loss. So I do, and we move on to the vehicle. Lawyer says it's damaged, but the client drove the car from the accident scene to straight to the lawyer's office. The windshield was damaged and there was fluids leaking from the car. I recommended that we tow the vehicle to a repair shop. I explained the customer had towing coverage and we can get a tow truck free of charge. The lawyer refuses and says the client can drive the car. The lawyer also demands that the client uses a repair shop of his choice. I explained to the lawyer that the client is absolutely allowed to use a shop of his choice, but that we have to send an adjuster out to the car to inspect the damage and give a quote to the repair shop. The reason we did this is a lot of times body shops will take advantage of insurance companies because they know we will pay, and the shops fix things that don't need to be fixed and purposely buy more expensive parts to hike up the price. It's pretty much insurance fraud. So we usually send an expert of our own out to assess the damage and write up a fair and legit repair estimate. The lawyer refuses and says that he isn't telling us the shop that the car is going to, and once again we will get a bill once all the work is done and we will be required to pay the full bill regardless of the price. I explain that we do not cover the cost of aftermarket parts. Only factory parts. It is listed in our contract. The customer agreed to this when he signed up. Once again, corporate BS, I know, but I don't make the rules, and I really am trying to help the customer out here so he doesn't have a bunch of unnecessary crap to deal with. I argued with this lawyer for a long time about how things work and why the way he was trying to handle this was going to end up costing the client money. The lawyer was on a path of destruction and was making every possible scenario worse for the client. The lawyer wasn't having any of it and of course threatened to sue and all that crap. I finally gave in and let the lawyer do whatever he wanted. I knew the worst case scenario would come of this and figured I'd let the lawyer and client feel the consequences of their stupid decisions and the lawyer trying to assert his dominance. I let him and his client do what they thought was best. I mean, why listen to the professional, right? What ends up happening is the customer takes the car to some sketchy shop. They do exactly what we feared and jack the price way up. They put expensive aftermarket replacement parts on the car which we don't cover. The customer had to pay out of pocket for a bunch of stuff to the repair shop. The repair shop took longer than 30 days to repair his car because the longer they have the car the more they can charge. We only cover 30 days for a rental car, so the client ends up paying out of pocket for a rental car too. Also, the client had to pay some out of pocket expenses to his doctor. We ended up reimbursing him for the doctor bills, but it was a long drawn out process. And very frustrating. We did not refund him for some of the expenses at the body shop, which amount to more than $1,000. In the end, the customer had a ton more out-of-pocket expenses and headaches because of his butthole lawyer. The next one is titled, "I'm docking 15 minutes off your pay." Yeah, cool, don't mind if I go for a 15-minute stroll. This happened about 9 years ago at one of my first jobs. I was working in sales over the phone. They had this odd policy of docking your pay 15 minutes if you were even 2 minutes late. Just for context, at this job we took credit card details and the like, but as our security policy, we couldn't be alone when working. There would at least have to be 2 people at any time. There were rarely only 2 people on, so it was never really a problem. One day I had to come in earlier than usual at about 9 a.m. I walk in about 10 minutes early, go to my desk, no one else is in yet, I'm the first in, so I put my bag down, turn on my computer, got to the kitchen, make a coffee, bring it back, then go to the toilet. I walk out to my desk at about 9:02. When I get to my desk, I see my team leader has just walked in and is visibly sweating from being outside. Australian summer, it's difficult not to, and he's still got his backpack on. He then says, "You're late, I'm docking you 15 minutes. Obviously I'm immediately triggered and say I was there before him. I just went to the toilet, my bag is right there in front of you on my desk and my coffee." Fair enough if he was sitting at his computer ready to rock and roll, but he had just walked in the office. He ignored what I said and said, "Doesn't matter, you're late." So I'm proper upset, not because of the 15 minutes but purely because this idiot literally just walked in and is saying I'm late. So being at work and not wanting to voice my actual thoughts and lose my job, I say, "Fine, I'll see you in 15 minutes then," and walk off to leave the office. At this point he realizes he can't even work now because of company policy. He then says, "No, you'll wait the 15 minutes here at your desk." At this point I was beyond being nice. I turned and said, "Are you gonna make me?" I didn't wait for an answer and continued off. When I came back 15 minutes later, TL was sitting there with his manager, GM, and he had obviously only told half the story because of the reception I got. What seems to be the problem? TL said, "You threatened him." I then explained to him how I was there before him and he was docking my pay for being late when he was the one that was late. I've already come in earlier than usual and now I'm getting docked my pay when I did nothing wrong by the person that did. I pointed out that I had set myself up to work already, coffee made too, and insisted they check the security camera footage if he didn't believe me, which drew a look from the GM to my TL. Anyway, they checked the security cameras, my story checked out. GM said I would get paid the 15 minutes anyway as I did nothing wrong, and even though I walked off it shouldn't have happened. TL got the sack about 2 months later for other reasons, not sure exactly why. I didn't really care to listen to him afterwards. The next one is titled, "You're Fired." This happened a couple of years ago. I was working a full-time job, and a tea shop opened up a new store nearby, and I usually frequent this chain. I decided duck it, let me apply and see what happens. I was more or less hired after an on-the-spot interview and told the expectations were high, and that she expected near perfection. Pretty high ask, considering most people that staff food service places are generally high schoolers at their first job. Fast forward a couple of months and I was working a closing shift. Being a more experienced worker, considering I was working with a couple high school students, I was generally tasked with making sure closing activities were done. There is one ingredient which usually needs to be cooked for the next morning, and takes about 20 minutes to prepare. Seeing that it was now 12:30 AM, and my full-time job started at 8 AM the next morning, I decided duck it, they can take 20 minutes the next morning to prepare this ingredient, and the three of us went home after cleaning. The next morning, the three of us were fired via group chat text for missing this ingredient. Considering how the manager just fired about a quarter of her workforce, I messaged her saying I was scheduled for the rest of the week and offered to at least work my last scheduled week to give her time to find someone. As well, I tried taking the blame for missing that ingredient, considering my co-workers had nothing to do with the missing ingredient. Having worked in food service industry before, I knew how stretched out the schedule would be after having so many people fired at once. The manager responded by saying there is no need to come in, and that maintaining the store was everyone's responsibility. So the following week I didn't show up. Not only that, but since the entire closing shift was publicly fired from a group text, another two co-workers I was close with were also maliciously compliant in solidarity, not showing up for the following week, or ever for that matter. They had to call people in from different stores to help out. The icing on the cake would be the manager sending me a text about a month later, saying another manager vouched for me and asked me to come back to work because they were short-staffed. I politely declined her invitation. The next one is titled, "Sorry, I'm working as fast as I can." I used to work at one of those pharmacy stores. I was part of the pharmacy staff and not the general store. The work includes many tasks like opening the new supplies of drugs, organizing them in their place. But the most important part was helping out the pharmacists as much as possible. My job was basically a cheaper alternative for them to hire another pharmacist. Needless to say, my pay was minimum pay. I'm there to scan all the rest of their stuff, not only from the pharmacy, and take their money after the pharmacist is done giving them their drugs, asking them if they know this drug and then putting stickers on it, and so letting the pharmacist accept the next person on the other register. It's very common to have impatient people coming to our store, and I live in a country with very impatient and rude people in general. One of the things that got on my nerves the most was when people asked me if I could hurry up taking their money and bagging their stuff. Just the nerve and stupidity of that request. I'm always working as fast as I can to shorten the workload with only one pharmacist. Come on, the last thing I want is to have those obnoxious people near me more than necessary. However, something in that request always flipped a switch in me that just shut me down. I would take a deep breath, go a few steps back, grab my stool and bring it back to the front, sit my butt comfortably on the uncomfortable stool and proceed to do my job while practicing mindfulness, passing their items one by one. Meticulously checking that the price is correct on each one, bagging the items very carefully, and finally taking their money, and if they paid in cash, making sure I'm giving them the exact amount of change. It was my way of coping with that type of person without completely losing it. Now, it is malicious, but not compliant. I know. But this one time I had this horrible lady come in. She told me to hurry up just as I was finishing taking her money, but then I realized that I didn't see she had another item. It was this small eyeliner that looked like a pen that I missed. To begin with, I hate it when they bring their other crap to pay at the pharmacy register because that's just rude for the other people waiting to get their drugs. But whatever. I told her I forgot to add this eyeliner, apologized, and asked her if she wants it anyways because she said she's in a hurry and our computers were very slow accepting credit cards. Here there is a language barrier, so I'll translate it literally. What I said was something like, "Do you want to let this go?" And she replied with something equivalent to, "We can let you go," which in my language sounds much more malignant, as if she said I'm worthless. At that moment I made prolonged eye contact with her without saying anything for a few seconds because I was a bit shocked with the nerve on this woman. I could see she regretted saying it, but we both knew what was going to happen. I got my stool, put my stupid smile on, and nodded, "No problem." I complied. The thing is, sometimes the scanner doesn't work properly. Especially with those makeup products which have a super small barcode. Well, what can I do but manually insert the barcode number? And it's not my fault that they sometimes put the price tag right on the number, so I have to scratch it off. And sorry, sometimes I type the wrong number. And sometimes the card reader doesn't read the card, so I have to pass it a few times until it does. And sometimes the communication with the credit company fails, or I accidentally press the back button and I have to start all over again. Not my fault. These things happen. But also, these things happen a lot less when the person in front of me is polite and doesn't need a lesson in manners. The last one is titled, "Work Free for Me." I worked as an associate applications engineer, which is basically an innuendo for, you do whatever we ask you to do. However, it was my first job, which I secured during the campus placements of our college, where I graduate, and the income was pretty decent, so I accepted it. Being a fresher enthusiastic about getting recognized in the corporate world, I was doubly interested to do beyond what's necessary because there is a lot of competition in the IT industry in our country. However, enter the typical evil manager, we will call him DP, which might or might not be the abbreviation of his name. This person is a sum of everything you don't want in a manager. Bossy, egoistical, mind-numbingly picky on trivial matters, incompetent, unable to change his point of view in the dynamic world of computer science, so on and so forth. A couple of months into the job, I already realized I wouldn't probably want to spend a lot of my initial corporate years in this job. Because, in addition to the manager, it was quite boring as opposed to what was promised to us pre-hiring. It required us to switch off our brains and keep manually clicking at a software until we get our output. Even though automation was possible and more efficient, the managers were typically old, comfortable only with the way things used to work a decade and a half ago. At first, I did several things which I thought was really beneficiary to the company. For instance, I had to stay late one day because I was supposed to meet a friend near my office, so I used the extra hours to code a small automation code to ease a particular manual work for the developers of our project. I didn't expect to be applauded for it, but I also did not expect to be shouted at by DP because I was doing unnecessary stuff. Later, a senior of the project I was in talked with me and said, "Why do you want to use your extra time for the company? Use it for your personal benefit. Do certifications for your future. Nobody cares around here about your sincere efforts to make the project smoother," which I found out later to be shockingly true. Now to the setting. I was working in another project, under the same manager with another project partner who we will call Banshee, the Wailing Spirit Banshee, because his name rhymes with it. Quite contrary to the name I gave him, he is actually a silent and sincere person who worked in the company for 4 years, under managers, and never complained. This will be important. DP set the deadline for the project as January 2020, because the newly promoted head in the US announced a brand new project, and it would be given to any manager who would finish the project at hand fast. The project had around 3 to 4 months to finish, which was an impossible deadline to catch, clear even to a fresher like me. DP started becoming greedy. Putting hour-long meets exactly after the working hours are done to extract more from engineers, moving his workplace closer to mine to swoop in and complain about anything he could find, etc. Anyway, we agreed. Work started piling up. We started working as late as 10 in the night, 3 hours more than required, but there's no rule against it, and like I said, the IT is increasingly competitive, and a substitute who would be willing to sacrifice personal life would not be difficult to find. One day, I reached home at 11:20 in the night, had to eat and sleep late, making me come to the office 15 minutes late the next day, for which I got an hour of bullying from DP regarding punctuality. I put up with it. Complained to HR once or twice, but never expected anything to happen. And nothing did. Now, the company releases a hackathon event for all the employees in my country, in which teams could voluntarily come together, start a new idea, discuss how it would be useful to the company. Here, DP gets a brilliant idea. He messages both Banshee and I that we will submit the exact same project we were currently doing in the hackathon. His intention? Hackathon happens during the weekend, which means Banshee and I needed to submit 16 hours of unpaid work over the weekend to the same project which we are supposed to be paid for. He messages us about the hackathon, which I assume he just asking us to participate in the hackathon. Here is, however, where he makes a small mistake, owing to the greed. His message reads, "I am submitting our project name. If you have any queries, let me know." I knew instantly that he made a mistake. I start my malicious compliance, or rather, malicious silence. I didn't actually open the chat, but I saw it in the notification, so he wouldn't know I actually saw it. I wait. I do no open the chat, and I continue working, making him assume I don't have a problem with it. He assumes so, and gives our names as participating. Then, in the evening, I put on an innocent face and shockingly tell him, I am not free this weekend, I can't make it. He is furious. Calls me to the meeting room, and bellows about why I didn't tell him sooner. Me, I didn't read your message. I was working on the thing you gave us this morning. DP, I gave you several hours to reply. Me, well, the thing you gave us took time. DP, doesn't matter, we gave our name, we have to participate. Me, you gave the name, and I never gave you consent. DP, I told you to approach me if you have any queries. Me, silence is not consent. He didn't have a reply to that. After the meet, Banshee told me he complained too, for the first time in 4 years, which shook DP's authority. I didn't attend the event, which didn't go well for our team, which gave a bad name to the manager. DP decided to squeeze more from me as a revenge. I politely resign after the hackathon incident. This was an unexpected bombshell. Although I was a fresher, I spent months understanding the project and developed several small automations in Python programming language, and they weren't properly explained because DP never gave me time for proper documentation. It was fun to see the egoistical manager swallow his ego and try to plead me to stay. But I had no such intentions. I was already trying to shift my focus towards artificial intelligence. I quit in January, right before the deadline. Months later, during lockdown, I finished a couple of certifications in AI, secured internships which helped me with my masters, got a good IELTS score and secured my future in AI, and the project still hadn't finished. The upcoming project from US was given to another manager, and last I heard, the manager himself had to do the technical aspect of the project which I previously had to do, since lockdown seriously affected the availability of employees. He didn't understand Python much either, and couldn't properly use automation tools I developed. I can picture him now, a grown man, sitting in front of the softwares, clicking and waiting for them to respond for 8 hours a day, for months. Thanks for listening.